the fact that I got pregnant at age 19. So I was a senior in high school. That was her grandchild, her biological grandchild.
There are particular challenges in 2025 in terms of raising a kid. Some of the rights are being taken away, and that's scary.
Good morning, folks, and welcome to a very, very special edition of I'll Get the Tip. This is a journey about adoption. Please meet Camille Celucci and Haley Coxe. And in our Connecticut studio, we have Kyra Bernor. So, Kyra, do you want to start us off, please?
So thank you so much to both of you guys for being here. This is such an important thing, for in your lives and so many other women's lives. It's such a pivotal moment, going through this journey that I feel like is not really talked about. So just thank you for being, open with us and vulnerable with us. I really appreciate that. So to begin, this is a question for both of you, but we can begin with Camille. What does being a mother mean to you right now in 2025?
Oh, wow. There is so many facets to that answer. In 2025, I would say it's the hardest job I think anyone does. It has moments of great joy and moments of panic and all of the emotions. You get to experience all the emotions that a human can experience, I think. Being a parent, whether a dad or a mom, I'm sure it's across all genders. But for me, it's the fulfillment of a lifelong dream.
Thank you so much. That was just a great, powerful answer.
I agree.
And then Haley, I would love to hear what being a mother means to you.
Well, I agree completely with what Camille just said. I think it comes with its challenges. It's a roller coaster most days. But it is the biggest blessing that I think any female can experience, So, yeah.
I just would like to add, there are particular challenges in 2025 in terms, as we know, in terms of raising a kid and all of this technology. For me, especially as a woman, raising a girl in a time where, not to get super political, but there are some things that, some of the rights are being taken away, and that's scary. So it's like we say, it's a roller coaster of emotion, and I think there are particular challenges unique to the sense that technology and all of the social media has been introduced.
Set the table for us. Give us a little bit of background of what we're going to talk about today.
Okay. So I'll give you a little of my history and my desires, and then we can talk it through. So my story begins where I wanted to be a mom my whole life. It's just something I always wanted to do. I'm the eldest of three. I watched out for my two little sisters. As a kid coming home from the bus stop from elementary school, I had this big hill to walk up on a path to get to my house. And I remember, it's a crazy thing, but I remember telling my future children stories and thinking about the stories I would tell them and introducing them to the nature around and teaching them about the sagebrush. I grew up in Reno, Nevada. And so it was a desire planted in my heart deeply from the very beginning from my earliest memories. So that sort of sets that part of the table.
I was born and raised in Huntsville, Alabama. Born to a upper middle class family, good family, with morals and values, and they ended up getting a divorce when my brother and I were 8 or 9 years old. And I remember that it was a pretty vivid experience for myself. And I know my brother and I kind of had two different, experiences with that. Mine was a little more traumatic than his was. Um, you know, uh, like I said, I grew up in a good family, and they taught me right from wrong, and um, I now I'm a wife and a mother of a 6-year-old daughter and Maggie's half sister. Um, so yeah, I mean that's kind of where I came from. So.
Camille, what made you decide to handwrite and send 3,000 letters, across the country? And then also, like, what kept you motivated through all of that? Because that is a huge task, and it's got to be like emotionally just you're in all the time. So what made you decide to do that? And then also what motivated you to like through it?
Oh, well, stepping back just a couple of beats of that. So I ended up choosing adoption because I went through premature menopause, and it was very surprising in my early mid-30s. I that my body was changing much earlier than I expected, and so I had to start. My dream was to be a mom. And what I realized is I didn't have to be a mom. Like being a mom, it looks like all kinds of things. And in my case, it didn't have to be my actual genes passing on. I wanted to raise a child. And so I went down a whole bunch of paths and different types. I realized I wanted to adopt. Went through a couple of different paths trying to figure that out, and international adoption. And I had actually completely given up because all kinds of hurdles and obstacles happened. And then my mom one night was with a friend, and she was they were taking a walk, and she just said, "Hey, Bob, how can we get Camille a baby? Because she's given up." And he said, well, interestingly enough, I started dating this woman who has this agency that she started way back when called Adopt International, and we should talk with her. And so their process, so we did, and they interviewed me, and they decided I would be a good candidate. And one of their processes is that you send letters to OBGYNs and pregnancy clinics across the country. They said adoption comes through three ways. One, in their situation, one through friends and family and people who know somebody who knows somebody. One, people contacting their agency because they know about Adopt. And the other one is this process of sending letters across the country. And so there are people who provide lists, and there are all kinds of statistics. Of course, we're in an age of data, so statistics around where adoptions come from in certain states, in different places, where the higher opportunities are and that kind of thing. And you also look at what you're connected to. Like I was born and raised in Reno, Nevada, so Nevada was a connection. I did some traveling, lived in New York a little bit. So you're constantly looking for kind of personal connections to those areas. And so the process was I decided I was going to send as many letters as possible. And so we sent out 3,000 letters. I had these letter writing parties, and we didn't actually have to hand write the letter, but we did have to hand address every letter, and I had to hand sign every letter. And there's a whole strategy. You don't send it between the a couple of weeks, like a week before Thanksgiving till after Christmas. You don't send it. There's all these different strategies around upping your chances. And so that's what I did. And the motivation was just deep in my heart. And I had an incredible community of friends. We all laughed because I'd bring my little suitcase with stamps and letters and envelopes, and we'd wrap them up together, and I had I had a little prize. Everybody kept track of their addresses, and we wrote down who was writing what thing, and whoever got the winning address got a prize. And yeah, we made it fun. And I had I have an incredible support community of friends and family that all pitched in and helped. They were all part of the energy and bringing this incredible experience to life.
How long did that take? That whole process of writing and sending and waiting?
Well, I feel super fortunate. I was on a film on Knowing, and I told them that I wouldn't be able to do the whole film because the time was going to be when I needed to come home and write and do the letter writing process. And we were talking about timing. So a wonderful person took over after we finished Prince of Photography, and I started, I started drafting the in September, and really worked really carefully on it. And then I think we started having letter signing and process. I had a friend who worked in politics, and he told us exactly how to get through a lot of letters, line up all your envelopes, put the sponge across it, make sure you then seal them. And so he taught us the whole process. And so we started in October, and I sent them out in mid-January, probably the first week after New Year's, I think. So I never forget going to the mail group down the street. I just said, I'm going to send them from Brock's Brothers. It's a little, place that packages their packages and stuff. And I just remember I said, okay, we have to put all of our love to all of the people who are going to see these letters and send them into the mail to this joyous and special and amazing journey. And so he helped me. This guy's like, okay, let's do it. Yeah, that's what we did.
Haley, can you tell us what it's like to be a role model?
What it's like to be a role model. I mean, it's a big job. It really is. And especially, in these times, raising a child in, like Camille said, in 2025. I take it very seriously. I think sometimes I overthink it a little too much, to my detriment sometimes, but, it's a big responsibility. But, it just, you do it day by day, and it's just life.
And I will say life happens all the time. So me looking down at my phone right now as a child saying, unlock my electronics. So I was doing that quickly. It never stops. No matter what you say, don't interrupt me for the next hour or come up and join us if you feel like it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Kyra, do you have a question you want to jump in?
Yeah. So why was having an open adoption so important to the both of you? Because that is such a huge role in all of this. I mean, you guys are still together in each other's support system. You guys are each other's families. So why was having that open adoption so important to you? And we can start off with Haley.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can kind of go back to my introduction. I meant to kind of talk about the fact that I got pregnant at age 19. So I was a senior in high school, or age 18. I was a senior in high school, and looking at becoming a mom. And it was super, I was not ready at all. I was not mature enough. I didn't know exactly at that point, what that was going to look like. I think Teen Mom, y'all remember the MTV Teen Mom show? That came out, and I feel like that kind of glorified becoming a mom at such an early age. But I think I knew in my heart that I knew I wasn't ready. I was not in a good place in my life at that point. I was really struggling with alcohol, drinking a lot, partying, stuff like that. And, my parents knew all of this, what was going on. And my mom and dad both basically, said that there are other options, and adoption is one of those. And, I was not willing to go the other route, with abortion or anything like that, which, I know everybody has um, their own opinions and everything, and that's fine, but that was just not something I wanted to do. And so I think choosing an open adoption is, I wanted to be able to know who my daughter was going to go to, and I wanted to watch her grow up. Um, and that was my real reason, my whole reason, basically.
I would say my huge why is that I knew it would be better for the child that I might be blessed enough to have. Um, I I have goddaughters that were adopted from China, and they don't have that opportunity, and I love them to bits. And I just felt that if I could do that and provide that for Maggie, so she knew where she came from, so she um, had an understanding. It was really a super important thing for me that whoever I got to partner with on this journey would be open to that. She wouldn't have the holes and the questions. And there were definitely people who were like, and even some in my family that were very trepidatious about this.
Mhm.
Um, and but for me, it was just clear.
What was it like the first time you guys met?
Well, I want to. Haley and I, her mom called. I was working on a different movie called Salt, sitting in the
Mhm.
production office. Um, I uh, I I was super excited because I was going to get an iPhone, and then the iPhone didn't work in that place, so I got a simple phone because I didn't want to miss a phone call in that particular time. We didn't have many bars. Anyway, her mom called. And she started talking, and she said, "We got your letter." And she started talking about this wonderful daughter, and she started giving me all, she's healthy and she's this. And, I felt like that line from a movie, "You had me at hello." Um, and that began Haley's and my journey. And Haley was only about 6 weeks pregnant, which is very early in a pregnancy for a mother, adoptive mother, and birth mother to connect. And my adoption agency even said, "Don't, Camille, I want you to keep your other options open because this is way early. I would much rather have her be further along because when she starts feeling the baby and all those things, a lot of things change, emotions change." Anyway, Haley and I talked on the phone once a week, every week for the rest of the pregnancy. And Haley invited me to come. Okay, we're going to cry this early in. There's going to be a lot of tears, folks.
Mhm.
Haley invited me for her 20-week appointment to go to Huntsville, Alabama, and together find out what the sex of the baby would be.
Mhm.
And for me, I have to say, you know, meeting Haley was really love at first sight. I was like this beautiful, kind, generous, gentle human being. Like, God answered my prayers in terms of I couldn't ask for a more beautiful human being to go through this process with. And that's what I felt instantly when I met her.
Can you tell us about some of the milestones that you both went through?
Yeah, I mean, that was having Camille uh, come down for, the sex of the baby. Um, I remember, I remember kind of later on towards the end of the pregnancy. Um, I feel like Camille showed up quite a few times to visit.
You guys came to Ohio, if you remember. You and your family came to Ohio when Haley was
Yes, that's
pregnant to
right.
our
That's right.
we had a
Right.
little family home in Ohio, and she and her mom and her Mimi came too, I think.
Mimi came. Yes, Mimi
Yeah.
went. Mhm.
So we invited them to our family. We had a family, kind of a family home in Ohio where my mom grew up, and we invited them to come and meet our family and be with us and stay with us there. And so we all got to know each other while Haley was pregnant. And Haley would always hold the phone to her tummy too, so I could say hello. And then I actually that was a milestone. We got to see everybody together. Our families got to meet, and I got to talk to the baby directly to the tummy for the first time.
So I have a question. I'm really interested in knowing, you guys were talking over on the phone, right? I want to know what the first thing both of you guys noticed about each other when you met in person. What was it, how tall they were? Was it the color of their hair? I just want to know, like, that small detail that maybe really stuck with you. Haley, we could start with you.
I think just how supportive Camille was, at that point. And how open she was to this idea of how open this adoption was going to be.
Mhm.
I think that was the biggest thing, is how supportive she was, how kind she was, how loving she was from the get-go.
And I noticed one of Haley is she's a petite frame, and one of my very best friends, like I'm somewhat tall, and one of my very best friends, like she's my very best friend. We never realized we had a different height, and so there was something wonderful about there was a recognition there in that too. If you're talking about just kind of physical attributes, and also Haley has the most beautiful soul, deep eyes. In terms of just, you feel like there's an authenticity there. And it brings me to one other. This was I know it doesn't. I don't know if it sounds like a milestone, but this was a milestone for me. It was a very specific moment when we first met, and Haley's grandma, who we call Mimi, she is beyond. She is a force, and so. Mimi took us to lunch, Haley and I, and Mimi had ordered some lemonade, and Haley said, "Hey, Mimi, could I have a little sip of your lemonade?" And Mimi said, "Honey, you can have a whole lemonade." And Haley said, "No, Mimi, because that wouldn't be good for the baby." And I went, wow, wow.
What was it like when you learned what sex the baby is for the first time? Haley, you had a child inside of you. What was it like?
Wild, to say the least. It was, I, I knew I wanted a girl, but that being confirmed, was amazing.
And I wanted it. It was funny. I wanted a girl in part because we haven't raised this part, but I was doing this as a single mom. I didn't have a partner through this. And at the beginning, I was scared nobody would choose me because I'm also older. This is a bit of a generational story too. I'm an older mom. And so, I felt I also tend to do a lot of traveling. And the only thing, I mean, this is going to be silly. I grew up with a bunch of women. My sisters grew up with sisters and everything. But also I thought, when I'm traveling in different places, I want to be able to go in the same public bathroom as my kid. So it's kind of important to me, so I can keep it, protect her. So, I mean, there were other reasons, but that was also part of it. Life is funny, I guess.
The clothes are cuter too.
Oh, my sister would argue with that. She had a little boy. Sabrina. You can imagine Sabrina and Landon. And one really fun thing that we did is that when we did the sonogram and found out it was a girl, I think we both started crying. I think I had maybe some of my family on the phone or something so they could hear too. And Haley was cool with that. Her mom was with us, and it was just really, really special. And then they told us the baby was about a pound. And
Yeah.
so Haley and I ran back to her apartment and we started looking for like canned, like things that might be a pound. And I think we found like a can that was like a pound, big can of beans or something. And we were like, okay, so she's this, she feels like this right now. This is how much she weighs. Just kind of so excited.
Can I ask a quick question to Haley?
Sure.
Haley, you had a rough time in the community. I mean, you were in high school,
Yeah.
so you're very young, and people in high school tend to be a little immature and sometimes cruel. Can you share some of those experiences with us for potentially for other people that are going to be going through the same journey you took?
Yeah. I was at a Christian school at the time when I became pregnant, and um, I had my close friends, of course, that weren't judgmental. Um, but there were others, of course, that were judgmental. And luckily, though, the school worked with me. I wasn't allowed to go to the classes. I had to do my work at home, and then there was tutors that met with me to be able to finish my senior year out. I also wasn't allowed to walk for graduation. And that was a big deal. That was hard. Because I think as a child, as a teenager, like that's a dream, that's a goal. And even though I was going to get my diploma, my high school diploma, I wasn't going to get to walk with my friends. And that was hard. But at the same time, I I I made the decisions that I made, and that was kind of one of my consequences, I think, Not to be hard on myself or anything, but it's realistically that was one of those things. I was at a Christian school, and that wasn't, I guess, acceptable or appropriate, you know?
I will say, Haley, and I think you'll remember this when I raise it. It always stuck with me, and it was just such a powerful moment. You called me, and we started talking about some stuff, and you started tearing up, and you said, Camille, this boy just said to me that he said, "I can't believe you're doing that. You're so selfish. Uh, Giving your child up, adoption is worse than abortion." And and you know, it was just, and I think we both cried on the phone. And I said, Haley, it just shows that he just doesn't have a clue. He doesn't understand all these things. And Haley said to me, I know, Camille, but it still hurts.
Even though I was getting pushback from, a lot of people in my life, I knew deep down that I couldn't take care of this child the way she deserved, the way she needed to be taken care of. Yes, I had a great family and a great upbringing, but I was not going to be able to raise her the way she needed to be raised. And and I knew that even though I had moments of, questioning, can I really do this? Can I really keep her? I knew deep down, that, that there was something better for her. And I just kind of had to trust and, go through with it.
There was definitely a moment in the hospital that was, a hard moment. There's a lot of joy, but there's also a lot of perseverance and courage in the story. And there was a moment when I was back at the hotel, and I get a call from the adoption counselor, and he says, Camille, Haley's changed her mind. And I had to sit with that, and try to figure out what to do next. I don't know if Haley, you want to speak to that for it all a minute.
Yeah.
And then yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. It was, of course, right after Maggie was born. And my mom and I were in the hospital room, and I we both had we both broke down. We were about to sign the adoption papers. That's what it was. I was about to sign the adoption papers. And my mom and I both looked at each other, and we were like, can we really do this? Can we really let this child go? Can we keep, can I keep her? And, we cried. We cried and we held each other. Man, I haven't thought about that in a while. And even for my mom, it was extremely hard for her too, seeing her daughter go through this, and um, being, connected to this child that I had just given birth to, that was her grandchild, her biological grandchild. And it was hard for her. It was extremely hard for her too. And I did end up signing the papers because I knew in my heart what I wanted to do and what I knew I needed to do. But that was a very pivotal moment too.
Yeah, I remember. The other thing about our story is that when Maggie was born, she was like 4 pounds 10 ounces, and at first she was having a little trouble breathing, and then she
Hmm.
was having trouble eating. And so I was actually in the room holding Haley's hand, counting for her as she birthed Maggie, this brave girl. And then immediately there were all the people coming in and checking, and oh, she's not breathing, and we need to look at this. And so they actually let me carry Maggie down to the NICU, which is the neonatal intensive care. And we were in a fantastic hospital in Huntsville, the Women Children's Huntsville Hospital. Just amazing group of nurses and people. And but it made it even harder for both parties. And the adoption counselor said, "Man, this is going to be not an easy journey, girls, because." At least they said this to me, because, now we've got a child who's sick, and we've got a child or who's potentially sick, or at least, it might be struggling. And so only 2 people could have wristbands to go in and see her. And so Haley had one, and she could bring one person, and I had one. And my sister had flown out from Sacramento and arrived about 3 hours after the birth. So she was there with me. And what I also realized is there were all these people around us. Like, up until the moment of the birth, it'd just been Haley and I on the phone talking to each other. And I remember, Haley, if I remember this wrong, you can correct me, but I remember, later what I heard a little bit from Haley is some of her friends were worried about Haley, obviously, and they also questioned, would I actually really do an open adoption? Would I was Haley actually going to get to see the baby? Maybe that won't really come true. And so there were a lot of different fears and scares and upset. And so I just remember saying that I just wanted to see Haley by herself, me and Haley, to talk to each other and reconnect the two of us, because there was all this commotion and friends and family and my sister, who's incredibly supportive, but all of this going on. And I just had to stop and go, we just need the two of us. And that's when Haley and I could reconnect and just remind her that it was me. And I also said to her in that time, I said, listen, Haley, I have to trust that if you decide that that's the journey for you, that you do need to keep Maggie, I have to say I love her, and I support you. You're doing the hardest thing anybody could ever do. I mean, Haley actually pumped for Maggie. Now, I told her she did not have to do that, because that does a whole other thing chemically in the body. Like, we are animals, and that is one of the primal things that connects you to this baby. You are providing them food and life. And Haley said, but Camille, she'll get the colostrum, and that will be better for her.
Could you share some happy moments with us?
Maggie just turned 16 in August, on August 17th. Some of, big milestones, like anybody, were obviously walking and talking. Maggie spoke later than most kids, so I was a little worried. But I was also trying to teach her French too, because I speak French. And so I was speaking only in French to her as a kid. And we also did baby signs. So they said that's probably the reason that she's speaking later, because she has sign to communicate. And she's also trying to process 2 languages and all those things. So those were big milestones. I would say it always felt like a milestone when we would get to go visit Haley. In fact, that we did this wonderful thing where people again were like, "You're doing what?" And I had the good fortune to do a film in France. I'm a visual effects producer and animation producer on the sides. I mean, not on the side. That's what I've done as most of my career. And so I had to go to France for like 3 weeks, and everybody people in my family were dealing with other stuff. And I was talking to Haley's mom at one point, and she said, if there's ever an opportunity that we could have Maggie for a while, if you're doing something, we'd love that. And so while I was in France, Haley and her family took Maggie, and Maggie was 2 at the time. And that was a huge milestone, And so,
What was
Haley,
that
what about
like?
you? Go ahead.
What was that like for you?
It just, it may be weird to most people, but it was just a normal thing. Like, I didn't really think twice about it. That's just how our relationship, Camille and I's relationship, and Maggie's relationship has been from the get-go. So, and for my mom and my dad too, it's that's just how it is.
Yeah, and Jim too. We got into Jim in this story a little bit too. Jim is since they were divorced, Haley's mom and dad, but they were divorced, and so a couple milestones for 2 weddings, if you can believe it, for us. So when Maggie was just a little over a year, Haley's mom married a wonderful man named Jim Hudson, and they invited me and Haley's dad too. Her dad, they invited us to their wedding. And so Maggie and I flew out to Huntsville, and we were at the wedding, which was incredible. And then the other wedding was Haley's wedding to a wonderful man named Corey. And there's a little story there too. But in a nutshell, I'll tell that, and then I just want to tell that other nutshell. But in a nutshell, so we flew out for the wedding, and it was really special to be there. And there was this moment where all of Haley's family was doing, the Haley side of the family, and Corey, they were doing the big wedding picture with everybody. And I was standing there with Maggie, and I think it might have been Mimi or your mom, or I'm not sure who, but someone said, "Maggie, come on here, get in this picture. You're part of our family." And so Maggie went over and was in the picture.
The wedding pictures.
Yeah. And the other big moment was the big milestone was meeting Allie, Haley's baby.
Yeah.
Maggie's sister.
Yes.
How did they react when they first met? I know it was baby, obviously, but what was it like for Maggie to have a sister?
Haley, you want to speak to Maggie seeing Allie?
I mean, I think.
No, Maggie was 10, so she was 10.
Yeah, and I think her probably being the only child, for her to get to meet her sister, I think that was a very important thing for her. Yeah. What about you, Camille? What do
Yeah,
you
I
think?
think, well, first she was very excited. She actually turned 10 when we met Allie for the first time. We flew out to, they were living in Baton Rouge. And so we flew out to Baton Rouge. And a side note that's an amazing note was that Corey, Haley's husband, couldn't have been kinder and more welcoming and more loving. And he offered the greatest thing that we couldn't take him up on, but talk about, his generosity. Maggie hasn't met her birth father yet.
Mhm.
And that'll be another part of our journey when it actually occurs. But she had never met her birth father. And Corey said, "Hey, if you guys want me to play that role for her and tell her that I'm her birth father, I'm, I would, I would do that for you." Do I have that right, Haley? That's what I
Yes.
understood. He
Yes.
offered up.
Yes. Yep. He sure did. He's amazing. He's amazing.
I'm sorry. This is not a common path, though, correct? What
I don't think so.
tell us about that, Haley. I mean, obviously you spoke to a lot of different people and went, who've gone through maybe similar, situations and stuff. How did it feel? This is a different outcome.
Yeah. I think most people can't wrap their heads around it, is the sense that I get. I think most people are like, oh, that's beautiful and that's amazing, but I think they just can't wrap their head around um, how open we all are. My entire family, including my husband, and Camille's family. It's just, I, I, I wouldn't have wanted it any other way.
Yeah, and I would say the thing that's kind of amazing now. I mean, I know I have a number of friends who have closed adoptions, and they just felt like it was just too scary. It was just too hard. Um, different circumstances for different kinds of parents. Um, so they couldn't do what we're doing. I think part of the uniqueness is just that we two people were brought together from a place that we both really wanted this. I think both of us were doing it for the ultimate reason, which we felt it would be best for the child. And so I think that's the thing about this story. And the other incredible thing for me is that, part of why I also wanted an open adoption, even more than just being able to go in the same bathroom, public bathrooms together, was that I would know all of Maggie's history. I would know at least from the birth mother side. I would know like how the medical side. I've called Haley so many times and asked her medically about this and about that. And things like we learned that her mom can't have a certain type of anesthesia. It's one that she could not wake up from, and apparently it skips generations. And so as soon as she found that out, she let us know. And Maggie did have to have some surgery for her hearing, and we had that information. So, from a practical sense, it's also really better for the child.
Just even hearing the two of you guys speak, and we're obviously virtual, but you can feel like the bond between you guys, how like interwoven you guys truly are in like each other's lives. And I think that's just beautiful. So I guess a question leading into that is, how do you guys continue to show up for each other today amongst everything else that's going on?
Haley, you want to kick us off?
Yeah. I think, with I have a child a lot younger than Maggie and going through similar things as um, you know, Maggie kind of went through as a young child. And being able to, you know, talk to Camille about those things openly and being as transparent as possible. With my struggles, with Allie, just being able to know that Camille has gone through some of the same things and being able to bounce things off of her and, uh, talk openly about those struggles. She's always a phone call away. She's always, she's always been open to, hearing those things that I'm going through with Allie. So.
And I would say with, Haley's also been, there's been times when I've had to call Haley and just say, hey, was this something, you did, or was this something, is this something that you experienced as a kid or as a child? And, we've had some different kinds of challenges with Maggie that, that Haley was able to speak to and talk to Maggie directly about. From that place. And that's also been really valuable because, Haley can speak to it from a very different place.
Does Maggie talk to you about her mom and about the whole concept of this open adoption?
She, it depends on the moment. She's a teenager now, but I think, what I decided early on for me, and Haley was up for it, was that I wanted Haley to have a special name that nobody else had in the world because, we decided she's not going to call Haley mom. And Haley's not an auntie. And so I said, why don't we come up with something? And Haley's last name at the time was Buckle. And so we came up with BB because it'd be easy for her to say when she was little and it should be like Maggie's Big Buckle. So, so Maggie calls her BB and we talk about BB a lot. And, there are times when she's mad at me and yelling at me and saying, I wish you never adopted me. And, you're not my real mom and all the things that, kids will say when they're angry and upset. And then there's other times where she'll, want to talk to Haley. And Maggie was at a special camp that helps kids. She was at a special summer camp that works with children with different things. Maggie is a neurodiverse learner, and some other challenges that she faces and that she's finding her way through. And so at that point, one of the things they asked us to do was write our stories for Maggie, because sometimes when Maggie's mad, she's like, "You just adopted me for fun." It's like, no, you just adopted me to control me, And then there's other wonderful times where she's, just so terrific and inspirational. But it was really powerful, I think, for both Haley and I to write a letter to Maggie about, how much she's loved and how much she's wanted and how much care was put into this decision. And, and I think for Maggie, she thrives, and BB's part of our life, and she'll see some clothes that she doesn't fit into and she'll be like, let's send these to Allie. So yeah, I think it's been a really valuable thing.
So when I was reading through the Google Doc you sent, there's something that's really a big event that happened, and I want to talk about it a little bit. I believe it was that ceremony. I think it was Maggie's baptism, I believe. I just want to know, what was going through your guys' hearts during all of this, because I'll let you guys speak on it. Camille, if you would like to start. I just want to know, not I obviously want to know everything,
Sure.
But whatever you're willing to share about that.
Kyra, I think we had two different kinds of ceremonies. So the first ceremony was recommended by our adoption counselor in the hospital. And he said, when the baby's healthy, there's a chapel in the hospital. And what I'd like to do is have, you and Haley's family. And it's going to be the official moment where Haley actually gives you Maggie. And I want you to get her a little gift for Haley. And it's like, what do we get Haley for something like this? And we got her there's nothing more special probably than a box from Tiffany's with with the letter B on it for my big buckle. So anyway, it seemed kind of ridiculous, but at least we had a little something to give Haley. And he said, I want you to be together and do this in an official way. It is a way of closure. So Haley, I don't know if you want to speak to that moment, but I think Kyra, that might be the blend ceremony you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that was another emotional moment too, handing over Maggie to Camille. Even after signing the papers, and that was the last, not last, but I mean last part of, I don't even know, last part of, having Maggie with me, now Camille and Maggie did end up staying, I think it was 2 weeks after Maggie got discharged from the hospital. They had to stay 2 weeks in Huntsville for, I guess, all the paperwork to go through and stuff. So of course, they stayed we got to see them and stuff like that. But yeah, that was another emotional moment. Hard, but good.
Yeah, I was, yeah, there are a lot of so many mixed emotions, and
Yeah.
I just continued to marvel at the courage that Haley had. It's one thing for me. I mean, at that point, I was in my 40s and had a lot of life experience. Haley was 19, and to see this amazing soul find her way through it was so powerful. And I just admire her for her strength and continued strength. My family and stuff has been there for her. My sisters, Cindy and Sabrina, and everybody, they're all surrounding her. And in terms of adoption agencies, yeah, the one that I used was called Adopt International here in the San Francisco area. There are all different kinds of adoption agencies out there working with families and helping families to find their way through this journey. And, I'm sure there are ones locally you can look up. There are ones that are more religious centered. There are ones who are non-religious centered. There's, international adoption agencies. So, the amazing thing is we now have stuff like Google and ChatGPT and all those things to help guide us. And I just would say, the biggest part of my journey in this has been to really have to trust my instinct and make the choices from that place, hearing everybody, but trying to make those choices. So I encourage people on this journey, to really look at when you can have that still small voice inside and follow that. That's the best advice I can give, and know that it's going to be a roller coaster, and it's going to have its ups and downs, and you persevere.
You women are extraordinary, just so special and so strong. And what role models for younger women that are thinking about maybe taking the same journey. I think you've really kind of been very candid with it and emotional about it, which is all honest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We're proud to be sponsored by Litchfield Distillery. They like to call themselves batchers in honor of the early farmers of Northwest Connecticut, a region known for its ample yield of wheat, corn, and barley. Growing these crops in the rocky terrain requires grit and determination. For the past decade, Litchfield Distillery has been busy distilling Litchfield County's best harvest into fine craft spirits, one batch at a time. Litchfield Distillery, the spirit of hard work.